we money get paper. Cause you know we party hard later. Mr. Flex and Papa got the old city lock with the girls in each and every area. Stefen NLC with no chaser.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where in the world you are joining me from. I am Alluminati, and this is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always, powered by Alti.com, the one-click crypto wallet for Telegram, WhatsApp, and now Discord. And as always, fueled by Hennessy TT. As I have been in the last few weeks, I'm having some Hennessy VSOP. It's just my favorite. And as always, very excited to bring to you guys another amazing conversation. As always, we remember the ICE rule. What we share here this evening is not financial advice. This is purely information, conversation, and for educational purposes. And the person that I have on this evening, this is probably one of the longest interviews in the making, one of the longest conversations in the making, because this is one that had been discussed even before the podcast started, and almost a year later, he's here, Mr. Stefen Deleveaux. I got it right, and he is the he's the president of the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. Stefen, what's up, man?
My brother. We made it happen.
We made it happen finally. Listen, I mean, long before I had Diana on, I was supposed to have you on. And we had Diana on almost a year ago. And she's like, yeah, you definitely have to have Stefen on. And it still didn't happen. But schedules have now aligned. And here we are.
All things happen in the right time, you know?
Facts. And we have you here, Mr. Bahamas, jumping on 1 week after Crypto Bahamas. So we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself for the people. Tell us a little bit about the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance and what that is about.
Sure. Well, my name is Stefen Deleveaux. I'm the president of the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, and we've been around basically for a long time. But we're essentially a nonprofit focused on just really blockchain adoption in all its forms in the Caribbean region. And we mainly work through two mandates, that being education and public policy. We focus a little more on the education side, but we've been doing that in different forms, usually very loosely, because we have a community of people. And the majority of those people are either have been in the space for a long time or are doing a lot in the space, or are doing a lot in the space. So all those people in their own kind of ways, in their own kind of capacities, either push for education or push for, government engagement, regulatory engagement. And this is something that we do as an organization, but we also try to empower, individuals to do it as well. And just whether building connections, which probably has been the main thing we've done all this time, just connect people towards who they need to talk to, or who governments or people on the ground or entrepreneurs or whatever need to talk to. So that's really been the gist of how we've operated all these years, because we started officially, unofficially end of 2016, but back then we were absolutely just a very small community. But we've grown quite a bit, and we've done quite a bit since then. And obviously, the space has changed massively since 2016. So sure. Everything looks different now, and it's been great to see people focus on different aspects, add more things to their expertise, watch the community grow, watch the people who are interested in this space grow, and of course, watching governments who didn't really care about it before now embrace it and start to see what they can do with it. So it's wild to watch.
Right. So I mean, you've given us a little synopsis there and traced the origins of the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance back to December 2016. But what that obviously means is that you were in this space even prior to that. So tell us about your journey to crypto, to blockchain, What was the thing, or what was the point that really created that conviction in you to be part of the space, and how has that evolved since then?
Yeah, a bit earlier than that. So I would say this is time. Time is very hard when you're in this space, but I would say it's been, I'd say mid 2015.
Hmm.
So I'll go even beyond that. So my background is economics.
Right.
I studied, came back home, started doing finance, and then I started like looking into technology. So I got really into fintech. Fintech
Right.
being just financial technology and how that's kind of operating and kind of evolving past the traditional like banking system. So I actually got like obsessed with that for a while. But then very quickly I realized fintech has a lot of issues. One being that even though it markets itself as being very different from the traditional financial system, it's still very much connected to the traditional financial system. It's
Yeah.
not really different. It's just a little bit easier for some people. But at the same time, it doesn't work in the Caribbean for the most part. Like, everything that, if you're in the US, you use like Venmo and Cash App, they don't work at all for most of us, right? So very quickly I realized I was excited about fintech, but then I realized, okay, there's not really much I could actually do with this. Um, so I got really disheartened. And then I think it was about mid 2015 I started looking into blockchain, because this is also when that kind of finance, kind of economic industry was looking at, okay, how could blockchain be used to empower people, right?
Right.
So I started looking into that. I started really looking into the technology and starting to understand. And I said, wait a minute, this is that evolution of finance that I was looking for from the beginning. This is actually what it potentially looks like. And I was like, well, this is even beyond fintech. This is like econ tech, because now you can like run entire economies on top of these things, right? So I say, okay, this is where I need to be. This is what I need to be focused on and looking into. So, but actually, even though I started getting really into it, I also, the space. Let's just say the space did not look like me at all. You know what I mean? So, so I was kind of just following in the background, starting to learn more, and I would say either end of 2015 or either beginning of 2016. I think end of 2015, I found out about Bit in Barbados. And I was
Hmm.
like, wait a minute, this is Bit being, the first blockchain related industry. I mean, sorry, company in the Caribbean.
Right.
And I said, oh, wait, these are people in my region that are actually working with this technology. Okay, now I need to find out more about them. I need to connect with them. I need to figure out how to, get more involved in general. So I ended up over the next like few months reaching out to obviously both Gabriel and Oliver. Started
Right.
talking to them. I ended up going to Tech Beach in Jamaica, end of I think November 2016. That's when I met Gabriel in person, um, and we ended up talking. And then over the next couple weeks, maybe a month or two, we actually, yeah, over the next like couple weeks, we end up bringing people together, who coming from different countries in the region, and basically started this little tiny community of people in the space, and that it really is what evolved into at least how we look at Caribbean Blockchain Alliance.
Right.
So, because it was the same people coming together to do more, and we started obviously bringing in a lot of other people. And over those couple of years, we formalized, we focused on mandates. We were like, okay, there's a lot we could do long into the future, so let's do it. So that's really how everything started up.
And you've continued down that part of leading the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. Um, have you have you delved into other areas of the space, or has that been your primary focus?
One thing about the space is it's hard to one, it's hard to only focus on one thing.
Yeah.
Two, I think the word primary doesn't even mean much anymore because everything is kind of like
Yeah.
equally doing
Yeah.
the same thing. So I mean, yeah, obviously still running this organization, still kind of letting a lot of the community take charge as well. Um, and yeah, I've gone into pretty much every aspect of Web3. Like I was part of DeFi Summer, then went right after that directly got into NFTs fairly
Right.
early. And then so this would have been end of 2020. So between like mid 2020, DeFi Summer, then August, September, I got into
Mhm.
NFTs, and around like maybe December or early January, I'd say end of 2020, I started looking into DAOs, and I got really into DAOs, and that's also like a heavy focus for me right now. So if I could think of two, let's say, passions in this space, it would be education, obviously via CBA, and DAOs, which stand for decentralized autonomous organizations.
So I'm seeing a bit of a trend here in terms of getting to the people, because on both the education side and on the DAO side, it's about empowering the average guy, the guy on the ground, um,
Informing communities, for
and
sure.
forming communities, right? And it's interesting because, I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance is kind of made up of what you could call the who's who of the Caribbean crypto blockchain space.
Right.
People who are leaders of communities in their own right. Um, and now that has spawned a lot of different communities, a lot of different projects, a lot of different opportunities in the space. But you're talking about getting involved in DAOs or getting excited about DAOs in December 2020, when most of the world, not even the Caribbean, most of the world was still not even really getting a grasp of NFTs.
Mhm.
So what was it that you saw that early that let you know that this is going to be something major in this space?
So a few things. I'll probably have to explain all of them. So for me,
That
I
time we
mean,
got.
I so obviously 2016, I saw obviously from the sidelines the original DAO, and that whole kind of experiment slash the crash of that experiment. Um, but even then, I wasn't particularly, and this is kind of going into DAO history a little bit, but I wasn't super interested in it because it was mostly focused on the idea of, oh, we could run an entire company through smart contracts, through
Right.
these kind of programs where the entity runs itself,
Yeah.
which is a very cool concept, but I wasn't particular, like for me, it wasn't super interesting.
Yeah.
Um, for the long term in the framing of like empowering people, because that's just taking
It's
people out of
more
it.
like displacing people that much.
Exactly.
Right.
And then and not to get too deep, but much later on, like around that time, like even before that, like say 2019, I wasn't involved then, but when I started looking into it around like end of 2020, the story had shifted, the narrative had shifted. Many people in the DAO space at that time, because there were already quite a few that were like really pushing the DAO space. They were focused on the social aspect, the human aspect, the community aspect, and that's what got really interesting for me.
Right.
And at the same time, I started realizing that. So when I was in college, I did my undergrad thesis on the idea of worker co-ops
Right.
and
So
what what
that's a
automatic.
point of interest for one of my best friends, Karen, my business partner at Crypto Caribbean, and I think that is one of the things that drew him to crypto and blockchain space as well, because he was
Exactly.
big like processing worker co-ops and stuff like that. How could it work in Trinidad? That kind of thing. Long
Yeah.
story short. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean that's exactly it. Because even back around like 2015, 2016, all the only thing that was on my mind was like, okay, how can we use blockchains for co-ops? How can we use it for credit unions? How can we use it for like mutual aid and things like that?
Yeah.
Like for the whole Caribbean and even on a global scale, right? So that's really what DAOs looked like for me, because I was like, okay, because again, the thesis was on worker co-ops and also this question of what would the economy or society look like if worker co-ops were the dominant type of
Business model.
organization, right, or firm, exactly. So And it's funny too, because I started getting into DAOs, but it wasn't until a couple months later I was like, wait a minute, this is exactly what I wrote about years ago. Is actually starting to come to fruition, because even then it was already and it was already starting to expand. It was already starting to come up. So I said, yeah, obviously this is where I need to dive in and actually follow this really well. Maybe follow this really closely. And over those months, obviously you had Diana on, so you know about her story DAO. There was a crew of us that started that together, and that was all of our first DAOs. First DAO, and at that time I was already super interested. I was following a lot of like the processes and the tools and stuff like that. So when they started forming that, talking about forming it, I said, hey, I'd love to help, even like from an advisory standpoint. Right. So I came on and just helped from the beginning of that. And from then on, it was like a snowball effect of jumping into different DAOs, following, talking to other people who are in the DAO space, following the tools and the architecture and all this kind of stuff, working in different DAOs, focusing on DAOs in a lot of different ways. Let's just say I just got very, very, very much into that space very quickly. So now I'm at this point where DAOs is definitely a focus. And a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about DAOs. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and interestingly enough, like I felt like, so you're talking December 2020, but I felt like maybe around August, September 2021, I started hearing the rumblings about DAOs in more the mainstream environment, a lot more. And I really expected that DAOs were going to take off in 2022 as a major narrative, as NFTs did the previous year, right, in 2021. But we've not really seen it happen. And I think a lot of people get excited about the idea of DAOs, but then when it's time to execute DAOs, especially because you want it decentralized, but in its formation, it kind of starts from a very centralized perspective. And I think maybe people get disenchanted with it. Tell me why you think the execution of it hasn't evolved at the speed that some of the other narratives in the space have.
I mean, there are multiple reasons. All are, I think, completely fair. Like, for example, number one, DAOs by default are a lot more grassroots than the other side, right? Which means by default, it's going to be, narrative or not, it's going to be a little slower. It's going to be a little less fanfare. Right. And to be honest, I also think that's a good thing. I think that means that DAOs are going to miss a lot of they'll still have their own hype cycle, but they're going to miss a lot of the crazy hype cycle. So it's not going to be like a million people jumping into DAOs, doing too much, and then getting disenchanted, and then people say forget DAOs. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more organic
and deliberate.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're also going to see a lot of companies, co-ops, organizations, whatever, become DAOs without really realizing that they're DAOs, and then two, not being super public about it. So not because they don't want to say it, two, because they don't really feel the need to. And then the obvious thing is just that, NFTs blew up. NFTs, the narrative started. I mean, you had a long number of years of collectibles, but they really started coming up when artists got into it. But then that very quickly shifted into money. So, which is how things happen, which is how technology happens. But it's not quite the same for DAOs. It's not like DAOs are not easily investable or flippable. I mean, obviously there's a strong financial aspect to it, but not the same way for like DeFi or NFTs. And it's not like people jumping into flip DAOs. So,
and I think that's the key, that on the DAO side, a lot of the people getting involved aren't necessarily trying to turn a quick buck. It's because they kind of resonate with whatever the passion point is for the DAO, and obviously they're in it for a long-term opportunity.
Exactly. And most people are much more quiet. I mean, it's funny too because all the I guess the influencers and the big names in this in the DAO space particularly, I know them and they've been like there for most of them have been there for, the last year or two. But there's again, like I said, there are people who've been in the DAO space for 3, 4 years that
Mm,
most people don't know. So it's just like there's just less fanfare around it at the end of the day.
yeah.
That's a big part
And,
of it.
and for my listeners who might be thinking 2 3 years, that's not very long. That's about 100 years in real
That's
time
100 years. Yeah,
when it comes with crypto time,
at least.
at least.
We're all about 1,000 years old right now.
Listen, I mean, 2015, mid 2015, you're
Shit.
ancient, dude. You're ancient.
I'm gonna get a cane and a
All right, so you've been doing a lot of work in the back end with DAOs and building out that ecosystem and supporting that ecosystem. How have you seen um, that kind of impact the regional space?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because it's right now. I mean, we've seen, especially in the NFT side, we've seen a lot of Caribbean people jump onto it and start to use it, and it's been beautiful to see. I think the DAO side, it's still pretty wide open. I know there are a few experiments going on, people trying out DAOs, but I kind of expect it to be fairly slow for right now. Um, I have some things in the works to accelerate that, but that's going to come later. But I mean, I think there's a lot of strong effort towards the space right now. Like if you look at Collectivo, which is a DAO really ecosystem based in Curacao. Also, they're connected to Aruba, but I think the majority of people don't know about them, but
Yeah.
they're very strong. They're doing a lot of really cool projects. Um, a lot of work on the ground in terms of just regular crypto adoption, but also like reforestation and a lot of organic and ecology stuff like that. I think that aspect is just growing. I think we're going to see one more DAO projects that are similar to that or that come out of that,
Right.
but there's going to be some coming out of the like startup education side as well in the
Right.
future, let's say near to mid future.
Okay. I mean, and you kind of touched on a point there, which is very real. The Caribbean in general is a bit behind the curve in terms of general crypto and blockchain adoption. So we're now kind of seeing people getting involved on the NFT side. We're seeing the creatives jumping in more aggressively, and that's great because I think the
Right.
Caribbean has a tremendous pool of talented creatives. But even still, on the I would say on the consumer side of that, there is still slow adoption.
Right.
So yeah, maybe we might have, unless you do something super special, we might have a slow adoption on that side as well.
It's also, and this is me being extremely optimistic, but a lot of the reason, even for the people who only know crypto as like buy, sell, trade,
Mhm.
A lot of the times that one of the main barriers that has blocked that is just because the access points are very difficult. Even regular people on the ground, for the most part, can't get proper access, so it's just very difficult to get access. So I think what we've seen, especially in terms of NFTs, where artists who either did not have any crypto or maybe just have like a little bit of crypto enough to pay like gas fees or whatever, but now they're selling art and now they can get paid in crypto. So now they have this on ramp via their own products that didn't exist before. And I think because I also see DAOs as really the future of work in a lot of ways, and I think there's capacity for, okay, I don't have real access to crypto, I can't get onto an exchange, but if I'm working in a DAO, whether it's some international global DAO or something in the region, and either they pay me in like a stable coin or they spin up their own currency and I swap it for a coin, what have you. Now I have this on ramp that didn't exist before, and it's not only like a one-time thing, it's constantly consistent because it's actually the work I'm doing and it's how I'm getting paid. And again, being very optimistic here, but if that grows enough to the point where there are DAOs proliferated throughout throughout the ecosystem, throughout the region, that creates its own effect where, okay, a lot more people are getting paid in whatever particular coin. Maybe merchants will start accepting it because they see more people using it. So it's kind of a very organic growth, and it'll be slow. It'll take long, but it's definitely a possibility. It's a possibility I could absolutely see happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking directly into one of my passion points, particularly in terms of people earning their way into crypto.
Yep.
I really believe that is a huge opportunity for the region to export our talents internationally, not just from a creative side, but from a developer side. I had the opportunity to speak to a bunch of high school students across the region, over 5,000 high school students across the region. And it was the ICT, Girls in ICT and the Boys Who Support Them conference put on by an association in the region. And it was exciting for me to see that was a focus of our educational system to really get kids looking at ICT and tech and that side of employment opportunities, because too often in our region, it's doctor, lawyer, economist, engineer. Those are the 4 categories that we know for really pushing our kids towards. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see people earn their way into crypto. I'm excited to see NFTs be used as an opportunity for people to on-ramp into the space, and as well as I'm looking forward to regional banks and regional central bankers to offer opportunities for people to on-ramp easier into the space. And we talked a little bit about what you guys are doing on the business education side. So I'm gonna use that as a segue to ask you about some of the things that you guys are doing in terms of the advocacy side with governments and stuff like that.
Yeah, this part is always interesting to talk about because so much of our work has genuinely been in the background, and most people don't know about it. Which it was funny to see, the FTX conference happened in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is after years and years of hard work to even really get to this point. Years of work that all these people here do not know about, but they they get to enjoy it, and that's just how things are, right?
Yeah.
That's how pioneering happens. So yeah, a lot of our work's been in the background, just on the ground, and kind of combining the education and the public policy side, right? Because you have to educate the policymakers at the end of the day, and it's just been a lot of conversations with regulators, government people, central bankers, and then also, very importantly, connecting them with people who they could either work with or even just have a meeting with, continue to talk to, resources to learn from, that kind of thing, where over time that just continues to grow and grow, to where policy starts changing, and to where more people are involved in pushing things in a certain direction. And now, obviously this is very hard because it's not an easy thing, but our goal really at the end of the day is to make sure this happens regionally and not just in a couple of countries. So we'll always keep pushing in some direction, and we not even being like the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance, we being the entire region, the entire community of people who are in this space and care about this space and are passionate about this space. We're all going to keep pushing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, from my experience here in Trinidad, it's always disheartening to hear people in positions of responsibility as it relates to public policy make statements that you can tell these guys have no clue. They really don't know. They don't know that they don't know. They aren't humble enough to seek out the
That's a
information,
big part of it.
or seek out the resources to support them in their decision making. And the unfortunate thing, I think, is that there is a lot of people in the space, like yourself, like myself, like other players, who don't even want to benefit in terms of like, pay me a salary to help you out. Like, we just want to push this thing ahead because we know there are going to be benefits for the region on a whole once it happens. But I guess, I don't know. Hopefully, we see some stuff happening down here at these islands lower down, like you guys have been able to do higher up the Caribbean, and maybe we see a FTX or a crypto.com conference in Trinidad and Tobago sometimes in the near future.
No, for sure. And I mean, the way you frame it is really interesting, right? Because like, not even asking for a salary, like everything, literally everything we've done with CBA has been for free. So it's definitely one of those things where you kind of have to sacrifice yourself in a lot of ways to just push for things to happen. But I mean, I also remember, all these years talking to people who did not care about it at all, hated it, thought it was terrible, then turn around and embrace it. So obviously it is possible. It's hard, but it kind of reminds me, like, seeing people turn around and accept it reminds me not to lose hope.
Right. Do you think that point about not charging for your services has an influence? Because I've kind of noticed, so I have a community, I give away crypto through my sponsors and partners. We do so many amazing things. Like last year for the season finale, we gave away something like over $25,000 worth of crypto and NFTs. And our community is still like not super small. We have a decent sized community, but like compared to some of the other things that have come through the region in terms of pyramid schemes that you see people just like flying into, and you're like, I'm not asking anything of you, I'm giving it away, and somehow that disincentivizes people from participating.
It's hard. I don't even have the right answer to it. It's something that I grapple with a lot, because a lot of times I'm like, am I stupid? How I should have been charging this whole time? But it's one of those things where, one, if you're pushing from a very early point, before people are even interested, you can't charge anyway, because if you that nobody will come, because it's like, well, I don't know what this is. Why should I pay you anything? And then later on, maybe you should change because people now are interested, and it's hard because there's like I said, there's the early point of people, if they don't know what it is, if they're not interested, then they're not going to pay you. And then at the same time, people, and I'm just really learning this now, people really don't value things that they get for free.
Yeah.
Which is strange, but it's the truth. And you definitely have to find some synthesis in between those two.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer for that. I don't know. When you find out, let me know, because it's a difficult thing.
All right, so let's take a little step back to something that you mentioned a moment ago, the FTX Crypto Bahamas conference that was held last week. I mean, it basically was quite a bit of the who's who in the international blockchain space coming to and not just in the blockchain space, people from the mainstream space, like the Tom Brady's of the world, touching down in Bahamas to talk crypto, to talk regional adoption and stuff like that. What was that like?
It was crazy. Like seeing, because we've had a conference in the Bahamas before, Polycon in 2018, but and as you could imagine, it was fairly small, but it was big for us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that was nothing compared to this. This was massive. There was a ridiculous amount of people, big shots, celebrities, big funds, big VCs, all that kind of stuff. a lot of Solana people, a lot of just protocol folks in general.
Yeah.
I don't even have the words. It was. I remember the opening happened, and I was like, wow, that's the moment when I said, wow, this is actually happening. I if you told me, in 2016, 2017, this would be happening, I don't know if I would have believed it.
So let me ask you. I mean, it's just me and you talking here. Nobody else is here. Did you shed a tear? Did you shed a tear?
I almost did. I'm not gonna lie. I was close. I definitely had a moment.
And what would you say was your like your favorite part of the conference? Like, what was the thing that you were like, yeah, I'm so freaking happy to be a part of this?
I would honestly, I would say it was definitely that opening, because it was also for me the idea of it
Right.
more than anything else. The fact that it was happening, the fact that the we were able to get to this point. Now, of course, there's a lot that could be improved, because I personally am obviously very focused on different aspects of it. But even outside of that, it's like, wow, this is real, and we'll see. And I obviously expect this to drive a lot of interest
Right.
in the Bahamas, but also in the Caribbean in general, especially as the U.S. is making very interesting moves, and and I hate to say it, but it kind of benefits us at the end of the day. So if we can continue to, and obviously a big part of that was the Bahamas getting to the point where they said, we're going to create a new bill, we're going to embrace the space as a country, really, at least in terms of the regulation and the government outlook. And we have more to do, because even here, there's a lot more that can be done. Obviously, Bermuda and Bermuda and Barbados have also been very open to crypto. So there's a lot more they can do as well. And then, of course, the hope is we can very quickly get the rest of the country, the rest of the islands out there, to embrace at some point. Because even in Trinidad, where it's been very rough, it's like when you get to the point where literally everybody else is embracing it, how long are you really going to resist?
Listen, I have some conversations coming up, so I'm not gonna preempt them, but I'm hoping that those conversations lead to some fruitful decision making and policy making.
Well, you got us, so keep us posted.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course. I mean, you guys are going to be my main port of call when it comes time to be like, yeah, go talk to Stefen and he will set you straight.
For sure.
But as we talk the Caribbean, as we talk Bahamas, Barbados, Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica with their jam decks, one of the things that makes the Caribbean as a collective's growth in this space, I think, interesting and maybe a little bit more challenging than, say, a country that is bigger like the US, but still has an easier point of adoption, is the fact that we as a collective have 13 different currencies that we have to operate from. We have multiple different languages. We have English, French, Spanish. We have some patois there. How do we overcome those obstacles to do something in a truly united way as the Caribbean?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a really great point, because that is one of the biggest challenges. We have so many. We're extremely similar in a lot of ways, but we have some strong barriers still. And honestly, it's tough, because it's like one of the big ideas was, and this is something that BIT was kind of focused on, this idea of, if everyone has maybe their own CBDC, maybe their own stablecoin, whatever, you can actually have a kind of, I'm trying to make sure I break this down, like a central point, where all of these currencies and coins can kind of intersect, interrelate.
So an artificial forex trading structure that allows us to have commerce and carry out economic activity interoperably without having to go through the first world structures.
Right. The idea of a Caribbean settlement network, meaning that all of these currencies can actually cross over and trade with each other, et cetera, et cetera. So that, I mean, that would be that would probably be the easiest way, but of course that's not something that you can just create tomorrow.
Right.
There's a lot of questions, and I don't know the answer to it, whether it's something like that or where it just ends up being like some kind of united stablecoin or what have you. That's gonna be something that's challenging in general, but I think there's also a lot of opportunity in, again, at least in terms of the DAO side, you have these different communities that can be made up of, whether it's like one in each country or a cross DAO between like Bahamas and Jamaica, where we're kind of working together and building together, and then just kind of growing and expanding and connecting all these dots. That's again, these are all very difficult things, but I think there's possibilities and values in there in these kind of decentralized structures that we can use where we're not totally focused on this one issue, this one issue, but we're kind of coming together to work on them in a even slightly more united way.
Right. And even as we think about the Caribbean solving for Caribbean challenges, there still are opportunities for the Caribbean to solve for global challenges, right? And you kind of spoke about the VCs and some of the biggest names in the space and the biggest VCs in the space being touching down in crypto Bahamas. What do you think are the opportunities for Caribbean creators, not creatives, but people who are building in this space in terms of accessing funding? What are some of the things that you would really advise them to do well as they step forward to access these opportunities? Give some free
I'm gonna say little Alpha Leak, pay very close attention to CBA in the next few months.
All right.
So I mean, well, we can get into that a little bit without revealing too much. But I mean, the main thing right now, we're planning basically an intro to Web3 workshop. It's like a workshop series of between a week and a half, 2 weeks. Each day will be focused on a different topic, pretty much. And that'll be end of July. We're planning for possibly early August, when people are like in the throes of summer, don't have to worry about school necessarily. And obviously this is catered to anyone in the region. Also, we do focus on student communities, but this is also for people who are not in school. This could be for your Grammy if you wanted to try it out. But the goal here is that most of the education that we've done has been a lot on the theoretical side, on like the history side, like this is what blockchain is, this is what blockchain does. But this one will be a little different. We want it to be very practical. We want it to be like as practical as possible, pretty much. So there'll be stuff for devs, there'll be stuff for the DeFi side, there'll be stuff for the NFT side. Again, in a very practical way. So it's like, okay, you're doing DeFi, you're actually gonna use Uniswap, actually do a swap or mint an NFT, that kind of thing, where you're actually not just learning about it, but you're actually participating, and because that's really how you learn in this space at the end of the day. Because I could talk to you about blockchain and crypto all day, but until you actually try it out, it doesn't really mean much.
Yeah, it's just magic internet money up until then.
Exactly. So the goal for this is going to be getting people actually getting their hands dirty, getting people actually try it out. Again, it'll be for everyone. Most like Diana said, she's perfectly fine doing the NFT side. Right. Mark Pereira is going to be doing some of the dev stuff. So so I'm happy with it already so far, and we're still in the planning mode. So it's going to be like, people on the ground in the Caribbean, people that we know, but also I'm not going to name any more names, but also some of the absolute top people in the space
Right.
who are like heads of protocols and stuff like that are going to be involved as well,
Well,
or heads of certain projects. So it's going to be a good mix of like, because it's also about, and I've been thinking about this a lot, but it's also about like getting people that we know who know what they're doing to interact with, but also at the same time getting our people access to the types of folks that they wouldn't get access to, on an everyday basis. So it's kind of like a hybrid in between two. And then again, it's going to be about, we can have 2 weeks. After that, we're going to basically make sure that they have continued access to what's going on, and we're going to be doing that in a very fun way. So
okay. So let me say, obviously, Crypto Caribbean is on board to get the word out and to let people know when that opportunity presents itself. But for others who want to connect with you guys directly outside of the website, what are some of the other ways? Do you guys have like a mailing list? Do you guys have anything that people could register, subscribe to, that they can always have access to you guys?
Yeah, so on our website, you can actually send us your email. We have a mailing list. We used to do a newsletter. We haven't done that recently, just because there's been a lot going on and we're kind of shifting focus a bit. But you can also hit us. We're on pretty much every social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter as well. And then if you want to help us get the word out, because we also want to make sure, I should also mention this, the workshop series is going to be entirely for free. There's that word again. But
this is how I live, free bags. Free bags is how I live. I think it's like I always have to explain this. Like, free bags, yes, it has to do with getting crypto for free. It has to do with recovering your capital, but it also has to do with understanding that education is a bag as well, and education is gonna help you secure your bags long term. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people don't get that. Like, if you're not willing to learn about this space and really get yourself involved with the education part of it, you're retarding your potential for growth. So I just put a ticker below here with the website, so guys, go check them out there.
For sure. And we just had the conversation about whether free is good, but for this circumstance, I definitely want as many people to actually participate and be involved as possible, because I think that's going to be very key for this entire community, this entire ecosystem, to actually participate and be a part of it.
And I'm not knocking anybody who's charging for their services, because people put their time into this, people put their energy into this. Not everyone is able to earn an income separately than the information or the education they're sharing, and there's tons of value there. But for those people who may not have the resources to be able to access those paid courses, you guys have to take the opportunity to participate in these types of things, where you're getting it from people who've been in the space for a long time, people who are actively in the space, people like Diana, people like Stefen, who are doing huge things in the space on a daily basis. I mean, shout out to Diana. I love her. She's probably 3 years, 2.5 years older than my daughter. So I totally I have super love for her from that perspective. But she's at Instagram's what you call it what, right? Somebody who is right within your reach. So guys, make sure and step into those opportunities as best as you can and take advantage of them. Stefen, we have something called the Crypto Caribbean TV tips, and I'm gonna launch into that now, and I'm gonna let you speak to the people and just give them 1 or 2 tips that if they take nothing else away from this conversation, they pay attention to that. So I'm going to do the intro, give you 2 seconds to think about it, and then we're going to go. So guys, welcome to Crypto Caribbean TV Tips. We have my boy Stefen from the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance here. And Stefen, so tell us, what is the one thing you want people to take away from this conversation if they had to take anything?
I'll do two quick ones. One, respect education. Two, always be open to new things. Always be willing to try different things out, because that's how we learn. That's how we grow.
Yeah? Done and done?
Done and done.
Love it. So as we continue the conversation, Stefen, I mean, you've touched on quite a few things. You've touched on early stages in the space. You've touched on what Bit was able to do in the space and what they continue to do. You've touched on Bahamas and what they've done with their CBDC and what recently happened last week with the crypto conference sponsored by FTX and Salt. What is the next thing that you are most excited to see happen in the regional space or in the international space in blockchain and crypto?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it all comes down to more adoption. More people who not only get into the space, but also kind of shift from, again, just thinking about crypto in terms of buying, selling, trading, and actually dive into Web3, where they will realize that, they, especially as Caribbean people, we now have access to so many more things than we had access to before. Even for those of us who found it very difficult to send money from one person to another, especially cross border.
Yeah,
that's wide open now, and and we built so much since then. So it's a wide open space, and it's just getting wider in terms of the amount of things that's happening. And after that, I would say just again the proliferation of DAOs and just organizations and even small groups and even companies becoming decentralized. I think that's going to change a lot of things, not just in terms of economics, but also culturally.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people in the region. We have complicated but yet very traditionally rooted political structures.
Right.
And I know in Trinidad, in Jamaica, even in Barbados, there've been a lot of talk about, how do we integrate DAOs into getting the voice of the people represented. We've all, even, I guess this is a condition of kind of the democratic process. We've all kind of settled on a two-party system that kind of just swings back and forth between each other. And a lot of people see DAOs as an opportunity for a third party to not only generate the groundswell of interest, but to be able to raise funds from the ground level to be able to compete. How do you see that impacting?
Or maybe even going beyond parties at all. But that's a little. I'm a little radical, so.
Listen,
baby steps.
You can't say those kind of things on the people on them YouTube, because they be watching. Next thing you know, you get the full glove activity next time you visit.
Listen to me. If it hasn't happened already, then I think I'm all right. But we'll see. But I mean, but let's put it like this: obviously, in all our countries, politics, especially between the main two parties, are always very hostile, or there's just a lot of back and forth. But if there's some potential for a little more organized unification, even if it's not on the outright, maybe in the background, for more people to work together, more people to align with each other, push, and more opportunities for regular people, the citizens, to push the parties in a better direction. or in the direction that we want to see them work into. And that goes into like other styles of voting, like quadratic voting and things like that, that are also connected to crypto. But yeah, it's a lot, a lot of opportunity though.
All right. And for the people who want to have the opportunity to meet you in person, pick your brain, where can we find you next? I know we have a few other conferences coming up. We know we have NFT NYC coming up. I know you love yourself a New York run. train the suitcase backstage and going.
Yeah, we didn't meet up last time, so we're gonna have to do it this time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
But yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm most likely gonna be there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really exciting to see everything come together. You know, I haven't been in here 1,000 years like you, but even in the time that I've been in here from DeFi summer to now, you know, it's been amazing to me to see the growth of the region, seeing regional projects do extremely well, from NFT projects like Days Ducks out of Antigua and Barbuda doing exceptionally well, having their work up on Times Square in New York, being 15x from launch at one point. Then we have people like Kimberly doing amazing things with Bridge Network. On
Shout out to Kim, shout out to Bridge Network.
Shout out to Kim, shout out to Bridge Network. People like Anya Youngchi being featured in the first ever Metaverse Fashion Week.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so important to have people like them, people like Diana, doing her amazing things for that generation and for every generation that has come before her, at 18 years old, really pushing the envelope and showing that, we have the competencies to really, to really have impact on a global level.
Right.
So,
and if you think about it, in every sphere, at some point, Caribbean people always find a way to come up.
Yeah, I mean, let's not even talk about Gabi and what he's done for this space. Being so heavily involved in Barbados and what they've done, being the first country in the world to have a metaverse embassy. I mean, and the Caribbean has stepped forward so many times to really be first. So for me, it's already been mind blowing. So I'm super excited to see what comes next. I'm super excited to see how Caribbean Blockchain Alliance plays a part in that.
It's just going to accelerate from here.
Yeah, I mean, there's still tons of people building amazing things coming out of that group. It's almost been an hour already. This is crazy. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to, maybe, I don't know if you want to shout your social or CBA's social, shout out anybody you want to shout out, leave your last words as we head off into the sunset.
Sure. I appreciate you putting the website on the bottom. So if you look at CBA Hub, there's also the Twitter handle CBA Hub. It's very easy to find. You can also find me through there as well. I'm not on Facebook often. I'm not on LinkedIn often, even though I should be. But I'm on Twitter all day, every day. Right. So
you're a crypto person.
I can't run from it. So I'm Steph Deleveaux on Twitter as well. You can find me there. So,
hey, Stefan, thank you so much for being on. I mean, I think this was an amazing conversation. I'm so happy that you came on and shared with us. I'm looking forward to that session in summer, late July, early August. We're definitely going to support you guys in terms of getting it out to the masses, because we want as many people from the region participating as possible, because we need to blow this thing up big. And Caribbean, not to just participate, but to dominate in this space. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, boss.
Guys, as always, thank you for being with me. Thanks to Stefan for being with us. shout out to you guys. Go check out cbahub.org, touch base with them, get connected, get educated. Because like I always say, adoption is inevitable.